Hey, quick question before we start. If I handed you a piece of paper today that was worth $800, or a piece of paper that was worth nothing right now but might be worth billions in 40 years, which one do you take? Keep that answer in your head because a guy named Ron Wayne actually had to make that exact choice. And he's the reason there are only two names most people remember when they think of Apple's founders, even though there were three. Ron Wayne was 15 years older than Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. He'd already worked in engineering. He'd already started and lost a business. And when Jobs and Wozniak brought him in to help set up Apple as a company in 1976, he wasn't some wide-eyed kid chasing a dream. He was the adult in the room. He drew the very first Apple logo. He wrote parts of the founding partnership agreement. And for his contribution, he was given 10% of the company. 10% of Apple. On paper, at that moment, that 10% was worth close to nothing. Apple wasn't Apple yet. It was three guys building computer kits in a garage. But if you ran the math forward to today, that 10% stake would be worth somewhere in the ballpark of $90 to $100 billion. So what happened? 12 days after signing the partnership agreement, Ron Wayne walked into the Santa Clara County Recorder's office and sold his entire stake back to Jobs and Wozniak. His payout, $800. Now here's where most videos about this story stop, with some version of, and that's the biggest financial mistake in history? What an idiot. Imagine how rich he'd be. But that framing skips the actual lesson. Ron Wayne wasn't an idiot. He was making a completely rational decision with the information he had at the time. And understanding why is far more useful to you than laughing at him. See, under the terms of the original partnership, all three founders were individually liable for any debt the company took on. Not the company in some abstract corporate sense. Ron Wayne personally. And Wayne had already been through this once. He'd started a company before. It had failed, and creditors had come after his personal assets to cover the debt. He knew exactly what that felt like, and he did not want to feel it again. So when Apple started signing purchase orders, it couldn't yet pay for real orders. Real debt, real risk. Wayne looked at his two younger, broke 20-something co-founders who had nothing to lose, and he looked at himself, a 41-year-old man with property and savings that could actually be seized. And he made the call. Get out now. Take the guaranteed money. Remove the risk. $800 wasn't a random lowball number either, by some accounts. Part of that payment was specifically to settle his portion of a debt Apple owed to a component supplier. He wasn't just cashing out for pocket change. He was buying his way out of personal financial exposure. Here's the part that should actually sit with you. At the time, staying in meant unlimited downside with uncertain upside. Leaving meant a small, certain, immediate gain with zero further risk. If you only had the information Ron Wayne had in 1976, no time machine, no hindsight, his choice was defensible, maybe even smart. The lesson isn't never sell too early. The lesson is that risk tolerance is personal. It's shaped by what you've already been through. And the right decision can only be judged by what you knew in the moment, not by how the story ends decades later. Ron Wayne, by the way, doesn't seem to spend his life in regret over it either. In interviews, he said he made the best decision he could with the information available and that he doesn't lose sleep over it. He's had an ordinary, comfortable life. Not a billionaire's life, but not a ruined one either. So back to that question I asked you at the start. $800 guaranteed, or maybe billions decades from now. If you're being honest with yourself and you actually had something to lose, would you really have held on? Tell me in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, real numbers, real decisions, no hindsight bias, subscribe, because this is just week 1.